So you guys, welcome back to a beginner's walkthrough of Dark Souls 3, and in this episode we're going to go through with the character creation, which is very important for how the rest of your game will turn out. There's a couple of options here, which is basically the name of your character, the gender, and the age. These three things, they don't really matter that much. It's just a measure of how your character will look in the game, and for the most of the time you will be wearing armor anyways, so you won't actually be able to see how your character looks. So with that said, we've got some different options here. The first is the knight. The knight to me is the most friendly starting character, or the most friendly starting class for a newcomer to Dark Souls. They start with some pretty good armor, which can actually be used for a big part of the game, if not the whole game. It's pretty heavy, but it's also pretty good in the stats. They start with a pretty good longsword and a shield with 100 physical, which means that if an enemy hits you, you can block that without taking damage, unless they have some kind of buff on their weapon, like if they have fire damage, you will still take some kind of damage from it. But it's the best way to go if you haven't really played a Souls game before, I think anyways. So up in the top right of the screen you see these different stats, or skills it might be. These are your starting stats if you start as a knight. Vigor is a measure of your maximum HP, which is actually a pretty important stat. It's not the most important stat if you ask me. It's actually a bit overrated perhaps, but you know, it's always good with more HP, but it's not as important as in games like, let's say, Skyrim, for example. Attunement. This is more if you're going for a caster build. Attunement actually determines how many spells you can have ready for use. Endurance. This one is important. Endurance is a measurement of your stamina, and stamina is a very important part of Dark Souls. It's really important to keep an eye on your endurance at any time, since this can be life or death. Vitality. This determines your equip load, and if we are going for a strength build, which this will be, vitality is very important, since it determines which kind of armors you can use at the same time with specific weapons, and most strength weapons are actually pretty heavy in this game, so it's an important stat. Strength. This determines strength and dexterity, I should say. This determines which kinds of weapons you can use. There are different types of weapons in this game. There are strength weapons and dexterity weapons, and they have different requirements for the usage. Strength. Some of these weapons will scale with the strength skill, which means that the output on your damage will be determined on how much you have in this stat, how much you invested in this stat, and it's actually the same for dexterity. Intelligence is a measurement of your total FP, how much mana we could say you have, so this is also meant for a caster. Faith. Faith, on the other hand, is a bit like intelligence. This just doesn't go with sorceries, it goes with miracles instead, and there are some pretty amazing miracles out there. Lastly, we have the luck stat. The luck stat is it's actually a bit weird, but it is actually what it says. It's luck. It determines the drop rate of your enemies, how often they will drop weapons or items when you kill them, And some weapons actually do scale with luck as well, so that's important to keep in mind as well. If, for example, you're going for something I will explain later, a hollow build or a bleed build, luck is actually a pretty important stat. So, but that's the knight, and under the stats you can see the starting equipment of the knight. Then we have the mercenary, which is good for a starting dex build. As you see, dexterity here is at 16, while on the knight it's at 12. We have the warrior, which is a good starting class if you want to go for a strength build. The reason why I'm not going with the warrior and I'm going with the knight instead is actually that the knight has some better starting gear, which is better in my opinion if you're new to the game. We have the herald, which is a mixture of faith and melee battle. We have the thief, which depends heavily on luck and a bit on dexterity as well. I haven't actually used the thief build before, so I don't really know what to say about the build other than the drop rate of enemies will be pretty big, starting with 14 in luck. The assassin is again a dexterity build, but like the herald, if you want to do a mixture of the usage of magic and melee combat, this could be the way to go. Sorcerer, as the name suggests, is a caster build. As you see, he got good starting attunement and great starting intelligence, whereof the vitality and strength is not that good, but in Dark Souls 2 the sorcerer was actually somehow the easy mode of the game, since you can just be standing at a distance and just shooting magic orbs after your enemies. I don't think it's quite the same in Dark Souls 3. It's actually a little more difficult to start as a sorcerer than as a melee combat character, but that's just my opinion. The Pyromancer I actually think was a new starting build for Dark Souls 3. The Pyromancer, as it suggests, is again a combination of melee combat and of magic. The Pyromancer uses this thing called a Pyromancer glove, which is a glove that casts fire spells. Pretty fun character to start as, actually. Then we have the cleric, which is heavily dependent on faith, so this is a character type you would use typically to build on miracles. Last but not least, we got this guy called the Deprived. Now, if you're new to Dark Souls, I wouldn't recommend in any way to start off with the Deprived, since, as you see, he starts at a level 1, which is the minimum. The skills are pretty balanced, so it's a character that you can build the way you would like as you go forward, but the start of the game will be pretty tough for you. So, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, we will be going for the Knight class. Then we have this thing called a Burial Gift, which is a starting item that you can choose from. There is the Life Ring, which raises the maximum HP, but yeah, it's really not that good. I don't remember how much it raises your HP, but it's not that much, and it's really, I would say it's kind of a waste to use this as your starting gift. We have the Divine Blessing, which is an item that restores your HP and cures you from other types of illnesses. It's a pretty good object, but I wouldn't go for that either. If I did choose to go for this, I would trade it in for something else, but I'm going to explain that later. The Hidden Blessing basically does the same as the Divine Blessing. The only difference is that this restores your FP instead of your HP, so this would be more for a caster build again. we've got the black fire bomb, which is a fire bomb you can throw at your enemies. I wouldn't go with that either. The fire gem, now this is more of an interesting thing to start off with. The fire gem actually applies fire damage to your weapon, but it decreases some of the other skills on that weapon. I would actually say, if I were to start as a pyromancer, this would be an interesting starting gift, but not for the knight class, no. So this is what we're going for. We're going for this thing called the Sovereignless Soul, which is a consumable soul you will start with. I think it gives you like 2,000 souls, and souls is the currency of the game. It's what you level up with, and to start off with 2,000 souls, just like that, I would say that's the best way to go. But again, take your time, think about it. You might think differently than I do. I just like to start with a bit experience, which souls basically is. The rusted gold coin. This is an item that increases your luck for a brief moment. This is good if you are looking for a dropped item for a specific enemy. You can use this, and your luck will be boosted for I don't know how long, but it's not that long. The cracked red eye orb. This is only used for online play. And since this is a beginner's walkthrough, I wouldn't recommend this either. The cracked red eye orb, basically what it does is it makes you invade another player's world. So you will be asked the task to go and kill this player, but there are a lot of skilled players out there, so I wouldn't go for this, but again, if you want to try it out, feel free to do so. The Young White Branch. This is actually kind of a fun gift as well. It will help you with a certain, you can't really call him enemy, but he starts off as an enemy but will become a friend if you treat him the right way. It's actually easier to explain later on what it actually does, but I don't think you should start with this. There's ways to work around it. So yeah, that's the starting gifts, and as I said before, we're going with the Sovereignless Soul. Like in any other, not any other, but most other video games these days, you can create your character's appearance. There are a lot of different things you can turn up and down. There are these presets, and as I mentioned earlier, you won't really be seeing the face of your character that much, so to me it doesn't really matter. But yeah, again, feel free to nerf around a bit if you want to see what it's all about. The build, this determines your physical appearance, your body appearance. Again, it doesn't really matter, but yeah, I guess it's more important to something other. Down here we can be a little more detailed with our build. We can actually change the voice, and this is only something you will hear when your character dies or get hit. So again, just a sample of the different types of voices. Usually I just go for the young voice, since I think it's the least annoying one of them. You can change skin color and of course hair as well, and eye color, and yeah, just about anything like in any other RPG. It's not something that I really think is that important, but yeah, I tend to just go for something that looks like really weird. I don't really know why. So we'll have to name this character, and we will call him Freakazoid. Don't ask me why. But yeah, I guess that is it. If you have any questions regarding any of these things, feel free to comment on the video, and I'll do my best to reach back to you, if anyone is watching, that is. So I guess we're actually ready to go. So here we are, guys, at the start of the game. This area is called the cemetry of Ash, and this is where the gameplay really starts. So you move around like you would in many other games, like on the left trigger you control your movement, on the right trigger you control the camera. I'm playing on PlayStation 4, so I'm going to refer to that kind of joypad. I'm sure that there's someone out there that can tell you, if you're using an Xbox controller, how it works there. I haven't ever played Dark Souls on an Xbox, so I wouldn't really know, but I can't really see why there would be that big a difference from PlayStation to Xbox. But the main options you have here is your R1 is a light attack, which looks like this, while the R2 is a power attack, or a heavy attack. If you hold it down, this would be what we call a power attack. It does a bit more damage, but it's not something I'm going to be using that much. As you see, we have our shield here in our left arm. If I hold down the L1, we will block incoming attacks, and we can actually use something called shield parries if I use the L2. Shield parries, it's a very good option if you can figure out the timing for it. I've never really been that good at it, but it gives you an opportunity to land a critical attack on your enemies. So keep that in mind. If you want to practice it from the start, feel free to. It will actually help you out quite a lot in the game if you get good at it. If I press the triangle button, I will two-hand my weapon instead. This increases the amount of damage you can do. You can see here in our attack power, when we're two-handing our sword, it's 130. If I go back to just using one arm, it's 124. Not that big a difference, but with some enemies you don't really need to use the shield. It's pretty useless, so yeah, sometimes it's better to two-hand it. The circle button, this makes you dash. In this instance, if you're just pushing it without holding down the left trigger, you would just take this step back. Where it really gets its use is when you move around and you press it, you will do like this rolling stuff, which is dodging. Dodging is something you gotta get comfortable with in this game. You won't survive long without it. Then we have, if we hold it down, we can run fast instead. Here the square button, this is our Estus flask, which is what heals our HP. And talking of HP, up in the left upper corner of the screen you see this red bar, which is your health bar. Then you have your FP under that, the blue bar, and your stamina at the green bar. You need to learn to control this. Like as I mentioned before, stamina is really important. Why it's important? It's because this determines if you can actually successfully dodge an attack from an opponent. So keep that in mind. Going forward here, if we push on the right trigger, we can actually put a target on our enemy. This makes us focus on this enemy. I tend to never go without targeting an enemy, simply because I'm not that good with the camera just rolling around like crazy. So I would recommend this for new users as well. Always put a target on the enemy you want to attack. These shiny things here, these are objects you can pick up, treasures if you like, always make sure to check out the treasure. A big part of Dark Souls is exploring. They actually reward you big time for doing this. Here we got our Ashen Estus Flask, which is the equivalent to our Estus Flask, which gives us HP. This blue one, the Ashen Estus Flask, actually heals our FP bar, so that determines the usage of spellcasting. They have these small messages here, which can show you the different things you can do in the game. Like here, they want us to do a critical attack or a backstab, which is a critical hit, just like, as I told you before, a parry would be. Be wary if an enemy doesn't seem to move. He's probably not dead. if you haven't killed him, he almost certainly isn't dead. So these starting enemies are actually pretty easy to get around, so they won't be the ones who gives you trouble. However, there is an enemy in the starting area here who can give you quite a tough time, but I'm going to be dealing with him in a bit. Yeah, and here on the left side, where of your controller, you can actually switch your equipped gear. If you press on the touchpad, you can go into equipment, and this shows you which weapons and things you're holding right now and what equipment you have. You can see up in the right corner there's our equip load, and right now our weight ratio is at 61.5, which is fine. We won't be having any trouble with that. If this number gets to 70 though, you will be getting the famous fat roll, and believe me, you don't want that. You don't want to fat roll. This limits you very much in battle. Here we're going to light our first bonfire, and we're going to rest. So what rest does is it gives you back your Estus and repair your weapons. You see that little red bar on the sword and the shield. This is the health of your weapon and the status of your weapon. If this drops down, your weapon will be broken, and it will cost you souls to repair it again. I haven't actually tried ever to surpass that, but keep that in mind, guys. The other thing the bonfire does is it resets the world, so the enemies you have killed already, they will be alive again. Keep that in mind as well. Just going to backstab this guy. And now we're going into this area, and as you see here, it says turn back, which is a nice way for Dark Souls to remind you that there is a tough enemy ahead. You can always come back for him later if you don't really feel up for it, but I'm gonna give it a try anyways. He's pretty tough, and you need to like roll around a lot and make sure that he doesn't hit you. It's a good way to practice your dodging ability, and it can be vary of your stamina. Oh, he almost got me there. Actually have hit him with a critical attack when he did that motion where he just, you know, kind of staggered him, if you saw that. But you need to get up in front of his head to do that, and I didn't really feel like I had the time for that. Like here. There it is. This is a critical attack on this crystal beast, I'll call him. Yeah, as you see, he hurts a lot when he finally hits you, but just make sure to like dodge around him. He really isn't that hard, but it's a good way to learn the game mechanics to fight him. So I would recommend going for it. And as you saw, he gave us like 4,000 souls, which is also a good thing. Another thing we got from him was actually this one called a Titanite scale. The Titanite scale is something you use to upgrade certain weapons. I will be explaining that a bit later in the game, but all you need to know now is hold on to these things. They will become very valuable if you choose certain types of weapons. These are the only ones that can upgrade those, and they're kind of rare in the game, so hold on to them. Don't sell them or anything. Hold on to them. Okay, so we're just going back to the bonfire here, and I think this will be it for this episode, guys. Thank you for watching. If there is anyone out there watching, feel free to comment if you have any questions, and maybe leave the video a like if it helped you out, or maybe even leave a subscription for my channel if you like to see more content like this. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.